If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Idaho Student Homicides Case Series. This is episode 11, Inan Harsh. This is a very mysterious individual. Some people are suspicious of him. Others simply believe he was a legitimate ear witness. They might know more information than he has revealed, and that, of course, he's not directly involved. What is the real truth? Here on Mindshock, we do not claim anything is true or untrue. Logic is the name of the game, and examining everything in an objective, logical, and neutral fashion, attempting not to fall for any logical fallacies, unlike pretty much everything else out there. As always, if you want to help support the Mindshock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel. That way, get access to exclusive streams and chats. And you could also share all of this info and this podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and anywhere else online you want to post a link. You could also check us out on Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests, questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comments section. All right, let's start this off with a Newsweek article on Inan Harsh. Who is Inan Harsh? Neighbor of slain Idaho students who heard scream. This was originally posted by Kaleda Rahman on December 19th, 2022. As mystery surrounding the murders of 4 University of Idaho students lingers, a neighbor who said he heard a scream on the night of the killings is continuing to be discussed online. More than a month since Kayla Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Kernodle's boyfriend Ethan Chapin were found dead in an off-campus house in Moscow on November 13th, police have yet to ID a suspect or make any arrests. Inan Harsh, 30, who lives in an apartment complex a few doors down from the house, told the Idaho Statesman earlier in December that he had gotten home from his job as a cook at a restaurant in Pullman, Washington, his hometown, which is located less than 10 miles from Moscow, at 1:30 a.m. on the night of the murders. The newspaper reported that Harsh said he couldn't be sure, but he thinks he heard a scream from the vicinity of his neighbor's home when he was dozing off at around 4 a.m. It didn't grab his attention, he said, because he assumed it was a party sound. I didn't think anything of it, Harsh said. After what happened, I've definitely had second thoughts. Maybe it was not a party sound. He added that he didn't mention the detail to police during an initial conversation with an officer. I'm not sure what good it does for them now, he said. Okay. Harsh has also written about the murders on social media, taken part in a Reddit Ask Me Anything, been interviewed on YouTube, and also referenced the murders in TikTok videos on his channel, leading him to continuing to be discussed online in association to the case. In his lengthy introductory post on the Reddit AMA, Harsh described the victims as beautiful, friendly, kind, and joyful. Harsh wrote that when an officer knocked on his door and asked if he had anything on the night of the murders, he was like, no, nothing unusual. I didn't know there was a murder. So small details like a faint scream in the distance, one of my neighbors getting home, closing the car door, closing their front door, etc. were not on my mind, he wrote. I heard a scream, faint and party-like to my half-asleep eyes. To be clear, there's probably at least 5 screams every Saturday. He also discussed his own life at length, including the history of drug use and past convictions, saying it was one that many will judge and consider immoral. Newsweek has contacted Harsh for further comment. Tanya commented on this July 11th, 2023. He said it was a super quiet night, unusually, and got a front parking spot because there wasn't a party going on. So why did you think it was a party scream? Plus, he said he worked until midnight and stayed talking to a coworker and didn't get home until 1:30 or 2 a.m., but I swear he is at the Grubhub in a hooded blanket coat with Vans shoes on. And we'll actually get to that. Truth Nut posted February 18th, 2023. Inan Harsh is a drug felon. He is still a dealer, probably Koberger's contact. He rented that apartment from August 2022 to January 2nd, 2023, while he also had a second apartment that he got out of December 22nd after Brian's arrest. His parents live on the route Brian took from the student's home after the slayings. There is more info that indicates 3 guys involved. Notice that Harsh stopped posting on all media sites after Brian's arrest. Law enforcement better get on him. And that's a curiosity. Does anybody think when Koberger asked if they arrested anybody else, he wasn't just talking about Kopaka, but possibly Inan Harsh? What does everybody think of this? So, regarding the AMA, I'm just gonna play the audio of the reading of the entire AMA and the questions. A ton of it has been deleted since it was online, but here's what remains. It's pretty weird.
Inan Harsh, M.A. Hello, my name is Inan Harsh, or Chief Dizzy. It's been a wild few days, and it seems there's a lot of news, misinformation, conspiracies, and a lot going on about my existence right now. I'm sure many of you are curious about who I am and how I got here. I haven't had a very average life, and I'm sure to a lot of people my beliefs, lifestyle, and actions that have many will judge and consider immoral. But the truth is, I have a dream, a story, and a perspective I'd like to share for whoever it may touch and help. I believe in 5 things: peace, harmony, freedom, love, and happiness. I truly believe this is something human existence can reach, but unfortunately, greed and corruption has pulled us far away from that dream, and the consequences of such has impacting individuals across the globe daily. But first, I would like to send out love and empathy for the family of the victims. Unheard of in this town and absolutely horrendous. I can't say I have ever lost a family member, but in many parts of my life, I had to grow or survive in harsh environments, and I have lost several close friends, and some I consider family. Many others are missing or probably never to be seen again at one many point S. In my life, I was on my way to be one of them, meditating on the murders, and the suffering brings me to tears, sometimes daily. One day, returning from work, I brought my neighbors some wine when they were having a small fire party outside just to meet them. Although it was a short visit, I remember how beautiful, friendly, kind, and joyful they were. So happy it instantly brightened up my day. I remember going inside and having an inspired, long, and sick flow before stretching and drilling. Kai with the neighbors you wanted on Greek Row, partying as expected. To imagine someone wanting to hurt them is beyond disbelief and so sick. Several days ago, when I thought I was over the sadness of losing those who only brought positive thoughts to me, when I went to check my mail, I saw the posting of their faces and started crying. I was listening to Fallen Soldiers by Cormega, Wu-Tang represent, and starting thing not only of the recent murders, but all the friends I lost, and continued crying for hours. I went to work 3 hours later, tears still pouring from my face, trying to stay calm for my work duties. I could barely talk, and our grill cook could tell something was up, but I didn't know how to verbalize the feeling of losing a friend almost every other year. A feeling where you can't focus on anything but the suffering of losing a loved one, the energy burning in you like a fire causing cuts. I'm mainly a prep cook. To be lighting speed but sloppy, I remember almost cutting myself using the anger, sadness, and other emotions to propel my movements. Remembering the kindness of those now gone, and, in this case, who had such a bright, happy, and free future. Kylie, Xana, and her boyfriend, those are the only 3 I remember, but I know all are amazing. We're real-ass human beings. To lose them is such an incredulous lose. I hope the family members find comfort in grief and heal fully with time, positive prayers and thoughts, and encourage them to try and spend their time on whatever activity brings them joy and or comfort, and from my hippie roots, to try and spend time with nature as it heals all wounds. While I don't normally support police, I understand them and do think there are some really well-intentioned and good ones in the force, as I've met a few. And in this case, I do support the homicide department and hope the perpetrator is found and justice is served. While I believe in freedom, there is a line you do not cross. And once you cross that line, it is time to move on to the next physical existence. I hope the family members and close relatives can find peace no matter what the outcome becomes. I have faced many near-death experiences. I've lived a reckless life, especially in my youth. I've done pretty much what I want my entire life. At the same time, I have always believed in compassion, morality, ahimsa, and being the best version of yourself. I have had a lot of struggles with insecurities, incredibly naive and optimistic, and extremely different, and lots of times misunderstood. Sometimes when I think about those I lost, I ask myself, why not me? But I know that's stupid, and while I'm not really religious, I do believe in purpose and destiny. Being here free and alive today, despite many odds, I truly believe I have something to offer to the world, and I'm looking at what's happening globally, and it brings me to tears to see how much suffering sentient beings are chronically experiencing. I have a story to share, and I think it's one that can touch people in meaningful ways and raise awareness of a lot of the problems in the world that many people do not see. Hopefully this will reach out those who can use or those just curious and make positive, meaningful changes in this world. But before we go further, I'd like to share a meditation I personally have found very powerful in my healing process. I couldn't find the book, but it is from Tibetan Heart Yoga. It is a book my mother gave me that I took for granted and let slip my gaze for almost a decade. Growing up homeschooled up to high school, I had a very different youth than most people in this country. I was very close to my mother but grew distant over the years. My mother faced a lot of suffering and death in her life as well. Her mother died in her only 20s and had a deep respect for all life, which is sacred, nature, and compassion, which eventually was inherited in my life. She always had a high focus on meditation, yoga, healthy local cooking, and being at peace. It was the respect and desire to be in harmony with all living things in nature and following her ideals, no matter the social status and monetary consequences, that saved my life over and over. With that said, there are 2 parts. Part 2 is only to be done after a successful one. It used to be easy for me, but I have not been as consistent with my practice, and rarely do I ever make it part 2 these days. When I do, it usually brings me to tears. Part 1, the perfect 10 sit on a pillow or the floor, whichever is more comfortable in a hold for 15 minutes. Erect your spine as if someone is pulling you up through the top of your string. Slightly tilt the chin down. Relax the shoulders, palms up on knees, centered on hips. Relax the rest of the body while staying erect in the spine. On the end of an exhale, pull your stomach in. Engage in your core, creating your Uddiyana. Preferably with your eyes closed or mostly shut. Relax your mind and just concentrate on your breathing. The more experience, well practiced. Practice makes permanent, not perfect. The longer your breath is, the less you will feel stress, anxiety, and worry. But for now, allow a few normal breaths and observe. Now it is time to start. Count rounds of breaths up to 10, with 5, 10 seconds each inhale and 5. 10 seconds each inhale and 5. 10 seconds, even though if any thought crosses your mind, start over. When you reach 10, you move on to part 2. Part 2. Take a flow that is familiar to you. Most Americans choose a rose, whereas in Tibet the most common is a lotus. Now imagine a brilliant white diamond shining with radiant golden light that expands beyond your physical self. Now take all of your negative energy and envision it into a black point hole. On the inhale, slowly pull it towards your golden flower, radiating light from the brilliant shining white diamond in the center. On your exhales, expand the energy emitting from the flower. Eventually, the negative energy mass will be very close to your flower. Use your mind to focus on the radiating light, and in one inhale, pull the black mass into the center, where the brilliant, shining diamond eats it, like a sun, and uses it to expand more light from the gold flower. Now that your light is more brilliant and expansive, it's time to think about someone you care deeply about who is suffering. Imagine them sitting in front of you with their own diamond and flower. The light is dim, and the diamond is barely an ember. Yet, something is wrong. You can tell they are not feeling well, and can sense and see their sadness. Your own flower and diamond are shining bright still, and envision this. Think about their struggles and what brings them suffering. Go deep and into detail, and without judgment. Think about their struggles. the sacrifices they have to make to overcome them, and the many ways human existence brings them suffering from society to personal health. Now envision all the negative energy and factors that cause them suffering and suck it like a black hole into one black mass. Now slowly start sucking it on your inhales out of their body. When it comes out, you can see some of their sadness leave their body and face, but you can still see it is not all removed, as you both still sense the negative energy mass. At the same time, some spark sets to the shining diamond and the golden flower begins to radiate more light. Now keep moving the mass towards you. Eventually, it will be close to your golden flower. Try to use around 7 or 8 breaths total to get here. Now focus on your radiating light, how intense it is from your diamond, consuming everything around it, but this mass. Now again, with one breath, pull it in and allow your diamond to eat it and shine the most brilliantly it has ever shone. Finally, the happiness of your loved one returns to her face and body. You can feel her problems being lifted and see the light return to her face as her flower glows strongly as the shining diamond grows in intensity. Now that both your flowers are bright and radiating expansive, brilliant light, imagine your diamonds emitting a beam of golden light, creating a concentrated ball of energy in the middle. Using 10 breaths, grow it in mass and intensity until the 10th breath, where mass explodes and creates a brilliant golden light, the most bright and intense. It's been as it consumes everything. Spend as many breaths here envisioning the omnipresent light. Try to start with at least 3 and then work your way up. There are reports of people spending days in this trance state. A lot of information and misinformation has been dug up about me, and a lot of false media as well. The initial media came from a dope fiend, Buthard, and I'd like to share my version and set the record straight. It said my car was used in a robbery. My car was in a fucking mechanic shop at the time. 12 years ago, I was charged with second robbery with a stolen firearm, felony possession of mushrooms, MDMA, meth, and opiates, I think. All charges were dropped, rightfully so, and I went to prison for possession with intent to deliver a MDMA. I'd like to share what happened and how I got there. Growing up, I was a very gifted student that was able to excel with putting minimal time into activities. I found myself with a lot of free time. As a teen, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, nor did I have any concrete sense of purpose as time. I was a bit of an outcast socially, but also very mature, but also very childlike. In my youth, I ended up hanging with much older people. I was dating a 21-year-old at the age of 16. Getting weed was hard back then. I remember it always taking a long time. Quality half the time was ass, and your bags were pinched or stolen sometimes. I ended up knowing some people, so started hooking my friends up. After a while, I was tired of all the bullshit of second man shit, and I felt like I could do it better. I partly did it to support my own weed habit. I partly did it because I was tired of seeing my friends, and I ripped off all the time. I'm a believer in freedom and Einstein, and in particular, I believe the government should not play the role of a mother. People have to learn how to make their own decisions, and I believe all drugs should be legal, so there is a safer and fairer space when it comes to substance. This would not only create purer, safer drugs, it would also make them cheaper, and the people addicted to such substances wouldn't feel so alienated and would be more inclined to seek the help they need. The way alcohol is not treated as a drug socially, but substances like MDMA, that while mostly party drugs also have clinical users, are treated like the devil. A few of my friends would have get-togethers every few months and have a rave MDMA. Back then was sketchy as fuck. It was another market I wanted to change for my community. We were all paying $20.20. But we were all paying $20.25. A 30 a pill and not always knowing what we were getting. So I bought a testing kit and started doing shit myself again. I probably would have made a lot of money, but instead I would do things like buy an ounce of weed and smoke it in a night with a group of 20 people. I was on probation for drinking at high school football game and on curfew. So on weekends, I would wait for curfew lady to call twice. Then I would climb out window, get ride to town, take a bus to the west side, and get back in time for school on Monday. One weekend, a lot happened, and when I got back, I was napping at a homie's place when I was woken up. Some opiate fiend came in to buy some shit, saw a couple rolls, 100 ecstasy pills, a quap of weed, picked it up, and ran out the door. My friends told me this dude took a bunch of pills, but they know where he lives from a mutual friend. At the time, a couple people in our group started smoking meth and ended up getting some crazy tweaker shit from them, one of them a gun. I wanted no part in it, so I did my best to stay out of that field. I had morals and rules, and meth definitely went past what I could believe in and was comfortable with. Yeah, I also stayed out of what wasn't my business. Anyway, since they woke me up from a nap, I felt they and I should do something about too. I happened to know someone there who I smoked oxy with a few times back in the day, and so I knew this person. I walked up to the back door and pretended I was fiending for opiates. The dude said he could get some, but it was $120. I would never pay over $80 back then, but I was like sure, so he let inside and we waited. I saw the rolls I had picked up on the rest side that weeked on the table and the quap of weed. I didn't know he stole the weed, or I would pick that up too. I picked up the rolls and ran for the back door. He followed and tried to stop me, so with the rolls clutched in my hand, I started bashing on his head with my fist until he let go. His friend was right there. I remember looking at him, expecting him to try and help him. But I think he knew what was up, so he put his hands out and was like, "I'm good, I ain't beef with you, bro." So I opened the back door and left. This piece of shit followed and jumped on me from behind, and I called for backup. My two friends came running from the parking lot and held him back, knowing how he snitched and lied to the police to us when he wasn't even looking at getting arrested sometimes. I think about how I should beat the shit out of him. But as a pacifist, I had the drugs, so we left. The neighbors heard a commotion and called the cops. We tried to throw everything from the house in the car and go out the side parking lot, but we missed a turn, and one of our teammates said something he shouldn't, and the police got probable, and then we all got fucked, as this dude happened to have a medical marijuana license and said we showed up trying to steal his medical marijuana. That he also stole from us. They found the stolen pistol and boom, second robbery. A part of me wishes I did shoot this piece of shit and left. But karma's a bitch and life goes on, and I don't have much luxury to spend a lot of times with thoughts like that. I was in county for a week. They wanted a speedy trial after they found out I didn't rob this dude with a pistol and offered me 2 weeks for felony possession of marijuana. My lawyer advised me to wait. The 16-year-old dumbass to me knew better and to take the 2 weeks. But I listened to my lawyer to try and get all the felonies off my records, and I ended up doing a year instead. Looking back, what fucking a joke. In prison, I learned how to shoot up, as well as how to be humble and grateful. It's quite sad that the people who struggle, usually from environmental, mental, and biological factors, who need the most help and mentorship, are given the most neglect. Many had abusive, meth-addicted parents with no financial stability, and eventually through suffering and neglect they fall into the same footsteps and do unthinkable things. The fact most of our society still lives on the laws our government has been feeding us for decades about drugs. The systematically weigh lowest income bracket populations and minorities are demographically contained in ways that make it hard to get out of poverty, violence, and drug abuse in their communities is heartbreaking to me. When I got out, I didn't really have any plans because I didn't think I would make it past the age of 24. I did drugs heavily, usually recitationally, but after prison, I didn't start developing more addictive personality traits and became a bit more estranged. I started getting into speedballs, and at one point in my life, I was having an odd almost every other month. I remember one time taking 3 shots of whiskey, then a speedball on top, and then waking up but naked with my friends giving me kippah in the shower. Having friends like these was something I'm eternally grateful for, cause in most similar environments that isn't always likely to happen. Spending a lot of time driving and on desolate roads, I got really comfortable at driving fast. I worked my way up to 110, 120, and wanted to do more, but my car couldn't go faster. I was usually going over 30 on speed limits on any given day, any given time. I almost drove off the bridge, going into Seattle, hitting some black ice, and a few other times I thought I was done for good, but have somehow managed to still be living. After I was released, I went from 130 Elbs to 180-ish. I fasted for 3 days and went vegan. I was vegetarian up to the age 18. At some point before going to prison for a second time, I decided just to run. I was living in a community in the mountains at that point and didn't see why I would leave or something would happen. But this dude came by to go up to Hempfest and we slept in a Pakura that night, and the police came and saw I had a warrant for dealing MDMA. And I got deported back to the Hempfest before that. I ended up parking my car in the wrong spot where it got towed, and I dropped 4 hits of acid of some random strangers for some weed. And while I was walking, there was this homeless dude who asked me for some money for some food. I was like, I got food, but not money, and starting reaching for some organic snacks I had, but he was all angry and said, I don't want your garbage. I was really taken about growing up in my small-ass community with no homeless people, but I realized I had never been homeless or in his situation, so I couldn't really judge him. So walking around listening to Aesop Rock, I decided I should see what it's like living without a stable source of shelter and food. So I hopped a train and rode it, trying to get as far away from civilization as possible. At some point, I hopped off and was walking on the tracks in a beach in a forest. Not too long, I noticed a plump Asian lady in a beautiful house with almost all see-through windows looking it out. I had not succeeded, but I still felt peace. My goal was to walk until I no longer felt an inch of greed in my body and only peace. So I fasted, walked, and lit a fire on the tracks, using it as a blanket for the night. I remember reading a book in prison called The Moneyless Man, and it has motivated me to this very day. It's about a dude who sources all the problems of the world to money, and the only way to be the solution is to stop using it. But being reasonable and resourceful, he raised $1,000-ish in cash to get a tent, water, sourced food from co-ops that had to throw up food after certain dates but were still good, usually for a bit after, biked everywhere, built his thing way from town, and did it for like 3 months. After realizing how much he liked it, he wanted to make plans later to do it for a prolonged period of time. At some point, after a few days, I remember reaching my goal, looking at a tree feeling, and also while breathing in the winds, looking towards on the water on the tracks and being able to feel every electrifying sensation of the wind throughout my whole body. I remember the feeling so good for a moment. I glimpsed the thought of suicide, knowing that once I re-entered civilization and society, I would never be able to experience something as satisfying. I think as we grow, though, there is always new realizations that allow us to reach new peaks. When I returned, I realized there were many others like me out here by choice. I never stopped and carried a sign. I remember as if by God, everything was provided. One time I was just walking down Seattle, and this couple walking out of a restaurant looked at me with a box of high-end cuisine and stopped me and said, "Hey, you need this more than us," and eating the most yummy Asian noodles in my life. Others showed me where non-profit kitchens were and taught me how to survive. Only the first few days were hard. At some point, I ran into some anarchists and squatted up for like a week. Eventually, I was braiding some hemp at a KFC, and this dude who had been eating there for a while looked at me and was like, "Yeah, you want a place to stay?" And I was like, "Sure." We walked to Fremont from Capitol Hill, and he lived in a dope-ass place with every type of book of learning you could imagine. I spent my time there landscaping one of his projects he wanted to do and reading his books. We met as friends, and they were cool and introduced me to Dalai Lama, not in real life. Another one of the books my mother got me was called How to Expand Love by the Dalai Lama. As a kid, it seemed really corny, but as I grew older, I became to realize how powerful of a book it was, along with Buddhism and the Dalai Lama. Throughout the years, I became a big follower and spent most of my time reading and meditation on his concepts, however imperfect of an individual I am. I also came to realize that that dude on the street was just a hater and I should pay people that know mine, which brought me a lot of peace as I rejoined society in an effort to help alleviate it of its suffering with whatever wisdom, skills, and teachings I could offer. I don't know if it was the best decision, but I believe or tell it to make me feel better that everything happens for a reason. I had warrants, I met my family in Seattle, went home and served my times. Although I wonder what my life would be like if I had stayed living in Seattle, trying to learn and grow as much as possible. During one of my re-ups, my Connect gave me tour of Seattle, and I ended up randomly buying this book by Bikram called Bikram Yoga at this hippie shop downtown. I only read up to the warm-up series, but this is one of the books and disciplines that have given me the tools of safe passage almost all my life. He talks about Americans and their problems and how the body and mind needs to be maintained like a car. The right way is the hard way. I religiously did the warm-up series in their entirety, along with the Tibetan heart yoga. the meditation, and there is some poses after. The potency of its effects on my happiness, mood, health, and well-being were undeniable, and I ended up dedicated a big portion of my life to yoga. At many times, it was my only tool of survival. In many of the constrained and restricted environment, I had to learn how to grow in while everyone around me was drowning. But I was also really about the festival life. I grew up very connected to art and music, and the scenes I saw there were always where I wanted to be. I was at a festival one time yelling Molly and ended up selling some to a guy that a cop saw. I was small-timer. I had less than a gram and less than $150 on me. I ended up going to prison for another year. This time, I wanted to refocus on my art and life since it was becoming more and more apparent I wasn't going to die when I thought. Years of surviving made me thrive to build a sustainable and healthy life for myself. I applied and went to Evergreen State Setup. Orientation was the week after I got out of prison for the second time. I went for fine arts and did music and dance composition. I ended up learning how much I loved shooting up coke and found access and started getting addicted to Ive Coke. I met another girl, very similar to me, who also loved to shoot up coke, but mostly opiates. I left a bunch of drugs and money at her place right there, but days later it wasn't stolen and she returned it. When we found out that each other was a trustworthy person that still had beliefs and values despite shooting up a lot of drugs, we became very close and started hanging out all the time, because that was a rare-ass quality. I remember loving being over there because of her positive attitude. We would stay up for like 3 or 4 days. I never felt bad withdrawals or calm downs just because she was so fun and pleasant to be around. We would sometimes sleep for 25 hours straight. I had to take us every week, so we'd go hard, sit through our calm downs withdrawals, go to school during the week, get our shit down, and then do it all over. Absolute insane lifestyle, but I felt like we made it our pretty good, all things considering. I remember when I would eventually walk to my house. I lived downtown, she lived towards campus. It was like a 4-mile walk, and I remember walking over the bridge, looking over the water with an unimaginable feeling of fatigueless, but finding some comfort in the water and stairs until I made it to long-ass steps that led up towards Capitol Way. I think a lot of people think I spent my youth in a den shooting up a bunch of drugs. But this isn't true. I only did that several times a month. My preferred activity was to eat 5 grams of mushrooms or 4 tabs of acid, put on some Aesop rock, and go 10-mile walks. It wasn't till college that I started doing hard drugs over psychedelics. Sometimes, after my UI, I would preload 10 coke shots and shoot up in the bathroom every 20 min during class. I was in a poetry class, so it was pretty dope. I'd take a fat-ass shot, then go to class and write a bunch of poetry. In all honesty, it was pretty dope. One time, on my way to my dealer's house on campus, another girl that I didn't hang out with much wanted to tag a lot. I got some coke, she got some heroin, and we went to her place on campus to bang it up. She took hers, I took mine, then dropped my needle cap out the window. I went outside to grab it and tried to come back in. No answer. Knocked again. Her roommate came and let me in. I didn't see her, so I went to the kitchen. She was on the floor with foam bubbles coming out of her mouth. I always thought being around death wouldn't faze me after all I've been through. But I felt her pulse and couldn't find it, or her breathing, and my heart and panic levels shot up to 10,000. I also just took a 0.12 gram sheen shot. I remembering wanting nothing more than for her to live. I dragged her to the bathroom, grabbed all the illicit shit I saw in my cursory glance, threw it in my backpack, and gave it to the first person I knew outside. They didn't know I shot up, but were pretty cool about the situation. It was like 10 seconds total of me opening the door, seeing a friend, and like you, I need you to take this ASAP. I went back inside and started running cold bath water on her. Wasn't really working due to awkwardness of space, so I evaluated and started pumping her chest and giving mouth to mouth. Her roommate came in and asked if she should call the cops. I said, I don't know. And she was like, I'm calling the cops. And I was like, okay. About a minute later, I had her breathing again and a huge feeling of relief. "Please don't call the cops," she said as knock came on the door, and I'm like they already here. Girl never took her fentanyl wash earlier that day. In her spoon, she used to shoot up the heroin she got from my dealer's house. And instantly, deed. Normally, in Washington in these situations, you're protected by something called the Good Samaritan Act. But they don't do laws on Evergreen campus. They bypassed it and kicked us both out of school. The biggest thing that happened to me at Evergreen, though, was Circus Club. A super amazing, super cute girl pulled me aside one day to teach me some hoop tricks, then beguiled me into Circus Club, where I discovered contact staff and instantly fell in love. I remember at a festival time high on acid seeing some dude do some fire contact staff and thinking it was the dopest shit ever. We met 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, so that's where I started my drilling. Eventually, I bought my own sticks and used my progression and practice to kick my coke use. I got deep into my practice and healed a lot of my past wounds and trauma. At some point in my life, I realized you couldn't just do drugs, as they are not an activity in of themselves. After I got kicked out of Evergreen, I started going to school online, gathering some equipment and making hip-hop music. I had rules when I did shot up coke eventually. I had to be creating art or music while I was high. So I'd set up everything, put on some beats, take a fatty shot, then rap over them. At some point, the coke took control, and I found myself spending hours searching the floor instead of making music. That was when I realized I had a problem and had to cut myself off because there was no excuse to do drugs and search your carpet, instead creating something worthwhile. I was living at home spending all my time practicing contact staff and yoga. 2-ish years later, I undertook 200 yoga teacher training and started teaching yoga. The training had unreal effects on me. I kicked habits I struggle with for almost a decade in a month and became one of the best versions of myself. Eventually, I had a bad breakup, got really depressed, and started shooting up heroin and coke against, and my life slowly started slipping apart again. I had to stop teaching yoga and eventually cut ties with studio I was at. Through my desire to stop my recent depression, I got a job as a dishwasher at a local fine dining breakfast joint. I remember loving every second. The first catering we had, I shot up a bunch of boke before going through work and was stressing the owners would see my track marks. I brought some coke in capsules to swallow so I wouldn't go through withdrawals at work. I remember having so much fun, even when coming down. I completely forgot about the capsules, and before I knew it, the night was over, and I was feeling good. Back then, I knew I had a problem, so I would only buy a half G at a time, and I would do it right before my dealer went to bed so I couldn't get any more after it was gone. Eventually, my passions took priority and most distractions took a back seat, the main one being coke. I found myself with a lot of time, a lot of money. For me, I probably spent about $600 a week on shooting up coke back then, and a lot of energy and passion. I worked up from singles to triple staff, financed a new hybrid, and got my own apartment, over 100 applications to get one, over 600 to get a job. Life as a felon. I slowly moved up my way at work to prep, then pantry, then flat. Then I was being trained on expo and saute before I got hit by a truck as a pedestrian that fractured 3 of my ribs and put me out of work for 8-ish months. I never fully recovered, and with COVID happening right after, took a huge hit to my career goals. I got a 17 settlement, but I feel it's minuscule to the negative impact it had on my life. As I grow older, I'm learning I have a desire to pass along what has helped me in life to others around me. On the night of the murder, I'm sure there's some discrepancies. First, I got home a little late because I was talking to one of my coworkers after work. When I went home, it was pretty normal. I made some tea, did some drills, and I think played a game of law. I went to bed and heard nothing out of the ordinary. When the cop knocked on my door next day and asked if I heard anteing, I was like, no, nothing unusual. I didn't know there was a murder, so small deals like a faint scream in the distance. One of my neighbors getting home, closing their car door, closing their front door, closing their front door. It's not on my mind. I noticed I was quoted as heard a screaming. This is not true. I heard a scream, faint and party-like to my half-asleep eyes. To be clear, there's probably at least 5 screams every Saturday. Even on dead nights, you'll probably hear at least someone making loud sounds at some point. Small detail, but in this situation, I think screaming and a scream and very different and small details matter like this with all the internet sleuths and conspirators around. Some of you are wondering what stick juggling is, and I'd love to share. I'm at a point in my practice where I will start offering services, fire shows and lessons, and I'm going to start a free YouTube channel on learning fundamentals along with a cooking show. If you'd like to see more about what's going on in my life, I'd love it if you stayed tuned. I actively avoid social media, but I have a public gig staff junkie that I haven't updated in years because I'm lazy when it comes to video uploading and editing, but I will work to add some more recent videos of what I've been doing with triples. I mostly work towards 4 right now. And with that, we can begin the ammo.
Did you see or do you know anyone with a white Hyundai Elantra? Is that a car you've seen around there before?
I don't think so. I feel like I have seen an Elantra a few times over the years, but I don't remember the color.
Why would you be bringing your underage neighbor's wine? You continue to not mention Maddie's name, acting as though you weren't familiar with her, but you follow her on Instagram.
Kylie got back from the bar and was over 21. She had an open beverage container in her hand before I arrived. I followed her after the murder to try and remember what I could, in case I had anything that could help, as I felt I was one of the only people up at that hour. But it was hard to try and reach for something that could be useful or relevant. Looking at faces and remembering their setup, character, porch, others' motives, etc., was where I started my investigation. I remembered one of my cellies doing 35 years for burglarizing a house so he could get some meth, but the dude came home and killed him with a sledgehammer. At the same time thinking about Kylie and her friends' roommates, they definitely didn't seem like the type that have a lot of valuables, do drugs, or at least consistently. And nothing was stolen. I also couldn't imagine anyone with aggressive feelings towards them, which leads me to so much confusion and mystery to why this happened.
I have 5 questions and would greatly appreciate an answer. 1. What do you think the easiest path was for the killer to take? 2. Is there anyone in the neighborhood or community you consider suspicious? 3. Can you tell us approximately how many private cameras are on Taylor? Steve? 4. Is there a trail system behind the apartments? 5. How many times were police K-9 and search and rescue dogs in the area?
1. If they had a car, I think parking on the hill to the right of King Street, as there were no cameras there I know of at the time or on King Street, then walk up King, take a left, and then there's a parking lot, and on the right side is area that's kind of dark and not used much except on party nights. Down that hill is the entrance to the yard and sliding door of Kaylee. So I think through that door out that same door to avoid unusual sounds, then through the yard to the side hill or King Street to your car and driving out. 2, if they were walking, I would think same door, but there's access to street on a steep hill above the parking lot, so I could see that as a possible escape route to avoid detection. But while Moscow parties, its activity at this time on most nights is pretty dismal. 3, I've thought about this a lot and know everyone here pretty much has their own life going on. I also can't imagine Kaylee doing anything that would drive someone to stab them. At the same time, the Christchurch are a suspicious bunch in general, but I also see a traveling dude who gets off killing people just as likey. 4, I didn't know them personally though, so I can't completely throw out some beef with a neighbor though. I highly doubt it though. 5, I'm guessing not many. In general, Moscow is a very safe town. Lots of people leave their doors and windows unlocked. Things are rarely stolen. People act surprised when their gun's unstolen with broken windows while it was in plain sight in the window. Lots of people have never even been to the cities here. 6, I think we have like one homeless person here. It's almost a utopia in a lot of ways besides the fact many consider it boring. Which is how people like me who grew up zero here got into a lot of hobbies. 7, no, but you can go out through the other side of the complexes and there's stairs on King Street that take you out to the Main Street Taylor. Again, if you're up for a climb, you can go into the neighborhood above us, and to those streets which take you either out to the Arboretum, campus, or downtown. 8, I'm not sure I'm at work while most people are at work, but I saw them at least once out there with dogs. I'm pretty sure that was like right after.
I would say I've researched extensively about this case. I've only ever seen him referred to as the neighbor who at first heard nothing and then suddenly changed his story. I hadn't once seen his name spelled out anywhere. There are several comments in this thread, already proving people had no idea who he was prior to this post.
When I made national news for the most mundane shit and conversation while taking my trash out, then going online and seeing all the lies posted about me, I thought it was time to let the cat out of the bag and let people what happened from my perspective on many things. For a super ordinary, mostly person in my eyes, this is super beyond ridiculous. But I think it's important considering how viral this has become and how much of a target I've become for basically nothing. I should let my voice be heard. The people that are mad at me while the media is making millions, billions of this is beyond hilarious to me. I'm so far in debt, I'm declaring bankruptcy, live paycheck to paycheck, and don't even have health insurance. My job is longer and harder than most, and the hours leave me almost to no social life, which I'll admit I've grown to like. I'm hurt by this like everyone else in this community, but many of us trying to grieve are disrupted by how national and outside attention it's got. The most affected, of course, being the parents. No one deserved this.
Where were you when you found out about the murders? After the incident, what was the energy of the area like? Anger? Was there a crowd of people?
I was at home. It was right after the cops came knocking on my door and asked some questions. They were doing it to every door. Everyone was confused. I went inside and started Googling and instantly found out there was a homicide. From the first picture, I thought it was actually the next house over. I was sad and angry, cautious, and maybe even a little bit paranoid. I think everyone else felt the same. I had a private conversation with the head chef about what happened. It brought me some comfort. But one night I heard some footsteps, and probably, honestly, just someone walking their door. Forgot to lock my door, and grabbed my kiritsuke and slept with it in its sheath next to my pillow. I don't think I would be the next target, but I'm for sure a little scared and starting to take some precautions too. At the least make his life harder if he does. It was right next to Thanksgiving break, so I think the people that could leave definitely did. It's hard when you're sad about someone and constantly reminded by them through the media, their posters everywhere, and other reasons. The crowd of media is still here, LOL, and it's partly ridiculous and partly hilarious to me. But at the same time, it also feels a bit safer just because of how much of a national presence here is right now.
You literally slept with your knife?
It has a magnetic wooden sheath, but yes. I was only that paranoid for one night, though.
Since you saw a dark Suva around the same time the victims returned home, did you also see them? The victims returning home?
Nah, I'm a super hermit. I spend almost all my times indoors in the winter. Sometimes I go for late night walks, but this night was pretty usual for me.
Why do you think the killer spared the dog?
Probably would bark if woken up. What I'm more curious about is why the other roommates were spared. I don't know. Even wacko psychopaths like dogs.
Okay, so let's look at this subreddit, Brian Koberger Moscow. Did anyone, this was about a month ago, did anyone see Harsh's latest interviews online, regardless of his, by Mystery School Dropout, regardless of his charm and sense of humor, which has undoubtedly skewed the rational thought process of many ladies, here's the main question. What is Harsh's alibi? Sitting alone, staring at the residence in question that night, ? Also, if he denies that it is him in the grub truck video with the drug rug poncho with that redhead lady, who is that person then? Does anyone on here from Moscow know? Or is that just another inconsistent statement he has exhibited, like the scream he heard or didn't hear? I have noticed long after reading through the exceptionally long AMA that he did, that he very specifically mentions a kiritsuke knife that he has by his bedside. Look it up. And if you would read it in its entirety, it seems like it's someone who's trying to troll with a bunch of relevant made-up details, in my own opinion. Opening to finding more about this dude, and if that isn't him at the grub truck, someone please correct me with who that really is. Growl This Is Noise posted, he said he only met them once when he went to give them wine, right? And then he talks like he's a friend of theirs or something. It's very weird. Hidden True Crime was one of the interviews he did. Very interesting interview here.
Hello, everyone. This is Lauren Matthias. Please subscribe and hit the like button so you can get these unexpected live streams. I have a very important guest with me right now, somebody that I hope can bring us more insight. I am with, will you pronounce your name? Inan? Enon.
Inan Harsh.
Enon Harsh, also known as Chef Dizzy, as you see there. Inan is a very, very important part of this Moscow homicide investigation because he was a neighbor of the 4 victims who lived on King Street. And I just want you to share with us what you know. Many also have heard of the neighbor that possibly heard a scream. This is that person.
Now, I do want to address one thing right here. So some people think it's suspicious that he wants to insert himself into the case like this and do these public interviews, being a neighbor of the victims, possibly having some kind of testimony that's very relevant and connected to the case, in which case you would think he wouldn't be speaking publicly. Now, let's not fall for false dichotomies. There's many different possibilities here. He could be completely innocent of any kind of wrongdoing and have made up the scream, which is wrongdoing, obviously, but in terms of he's not responsible for what happened to them. He's simply inserting himself because he wants attention, whatever, or he could have some kind of mental health issue and not be connected to the crime. So that's definitely a possibility. And then obviously, if he does have some kind of a connection, maybe he knows what happened and who did it, but is too scared to talk, but is very conflicted and for whatever reason, again, personality quirks, mental health issues, brings himself out there to do an interview. Or maybe he's directly responsible. Again, I'm not claiming that's true, but if he is, I mean, criminals do like to insert themselves into investigations. Or maybe he's partially responsible where he was used as a distraction or something of that nature, and he was working with the guilty parties in some capacity. Or maybe he's 100% innocent and really did hear the scream, whether it was related or not, and is just coming forward to try to be as helpful as possible. And this could be for several different reasons as well. It could be possibly that he realizes there's some kind of corruption and or incompetence with the police, and that's why he's bringing this information forward, because he believes, obviously, the victims deserve justice, and this is the best chance at getting the most amount of information out there. So there's a whole bunch of different possibilities. We don't fall for these silly logical fallacies on Mindshock. He could be guilty, innocent, partially, some of column A, some of column B, a mix of everything, or 100% good, 100% bad. There's so many different possibilities here. It doesn't immediately point to one thing or the other. I know on social media, people just like to start declaring 100% absolutes, theory A, theory B, and that's it. But obviously on Mindshock, we don't do that.
That I have with me now. So let everyone know this is going on. We'll try to take some questions as well. But right now, I'm going to start with my questions because I have a lot of them. I want to thank you for being here. And first off, I think we should just start by taking us back to that night. The things I've heard in the news from you, Inan, are that it was an unexpectedly quiet night. You wrote about the crime on social media, and share what you remember from that night. Is that a good place for us to start right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I work about like 10, usually like 9 to 11-hour shifts. So I went to work. I got off around, I think it was around 12 that night. It was kind of like a late close, and I like bullshitted with like a coworker for a little while after work, and then I went home. It was around, I don't know, like 1:30, 2-ish a.m. Was maybe when I got home, maybe and I'm always like kind of hoping that I have like a parking spot right in front of my door when I get there, because like lots of times on campus, there's like parties and like they're pretty full. And so like this time I noticed that like, I don't know, it wasn't really any cars as usual. I was like, cool, I'm gonna get a nice spot right in front. And there was I did, and I saw like this sort of like kind of like decked out like luxury, like I thought it was black SUV, maybe like a Beamer or something, and it had like rims, tinted windows, and I was like, oh, that's like a pretty cool car. And then like coming out, like I noticed some like plates from like Arizona, I want to say, or Montana. There's kind of like it's like I'm always like kind of curious what kind of like different plates are like around and stuff. Because usually you just see like Idaho, especially in like my parking lot.
So this is pretty curious because he's claiming here there's a really nice looking decked out SUV with Arizona or Montana plates. Now, and he says he specifically pays attention to plates because he's just curious. Most of the time it's just from Idaho. I guess you would think there'd be more Washington State, but he says it's mostly Idaho in the area. Now, Montana and Arizona, even though they're pretty much on the opposite ends of the country, Montana all the way to the north, bordering Canada, for those that don't know, and a little piece of Idaho actually also borders Canada, but Arizona is all the way to the south, bordering Mexico. But and curiously, obviously Montana, one of the coldest states with the harshest winters and the most snow, and of course Arizona, one of the absolute hottest in the desert, with some of the highest temperatures in the country. And yeah, just polar opposites in every sense of the word. And yet their license plates do look similar. They do look similar. They both have a mountain range, pretty much the bulk of it on the bottom left of the plate. And Montana has what appears to be a lightning strike, whereas Arizona has a cactus that sort of kind of could resemble this protrusion from the mountain range. So from a distance at night, it is actually very plausible one could mistake the two plates. What is not plausible, of course, is mistaking a black SUV with a white Elantra. So that is curious. Now, some people believe he just made this up to divert attention or deflect. Or is this the critical piece? Is there some vast conspiracy with government elements at play? Or, third option, is there some kind of, not necessarily mutually exclusive, but is there some kind of drug cartel issue? Obviously, drug cartels do use black SUVs. Then again, so do government agents. But if it was some kind of cartel with or without government complicity, and then are they just did they just find an Elantra to blame it on? They say it's the Elantra. Then all of a sudden, Koberger's Elantra is the wrong year and completely different body style, and they just hope everybody forgot about it. And they just pretend it all matches, and the gullible goof slap it all up.
And so like I came in, and it was like surprisingly like pretty empty that night. Like none of the houses and like that on those like two streets were having parties, which was like kind of unusual. And then I went home. It's like making some tea, just like doing some contact staff drills and like stretching. I think I played a game of League, and then I went to bed, and then as I was falling asleep, it usually takes me like 30 minutes to an hour to fall asleep. Like, I don't know, I guess, I dismissed like initially like, one of my neighbors returning hello after me. So I heard like, a door shut, and then like, apartment door shut, and like also like a scream. But like, that's like normal. Like I always hear like screaming almost every Saturday night. So like I didn't really like think of it.
And this is what the other commenter pointed out, because if this was a not normal night with according to him, no parties going on in the surrounding houses, a scream would be normal when there were parties. But according to him, it's not a normal night and there was a scream. So why did he write it off as normal if there weren't parties going on?
And so, but like, just looking back, I was like, I wonder if like, that wasn't just like some drunk dude like screaming, like it's actually like the murder. And yeah, and it was like it was kind of a trip having like the cops like come on, and like no one knew what happened. They're just like asking where we were, and we're like, this is weird. Like they're knocking on every single door in our apartment. Like that's never happened before. And then like I went inside and looked on the news, and it was like 4 people stabbed to death. I was like, it's like right across the street. It was like, holy shit.
Wait, so does that add up? The first time they were knocking on doors? So how many hours after was it? And then he goes and looks on the news and it's already running. Does that match up? When does anybody know when the first local news report was playing in Moscow, Idaho? That can corroborate his story here.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When did you hear about it? Was it those knocks on the door? You woke up the next day? Did these knocks on your apartment door
Well,
wake up? How did you learn about it?
I was already awake. You know, I was just like woke up a little bit. I was still like drinking coffee, and like the cops knocked on my door, and like after they asked me some questions, like right after they left and started like they were starting to talk to the next door over. I looked on my phone and Googled it and found it pretty much instantly, and that's when I knew. And then I think it was like I don't know a couple days later when we like the names were released and we like found out who it was or whatever.
Okay, that was the question I was going to ask. Like, did you initially know that you knew them at all, or did you just know the
No, actually,
neighbors?
when I first saw it, I saw the picture I saw. I thought it was actually the house, like the next house over. I was like, oh. But then when I found out it was like, the house of the people that I like, I don't want to say I knew them, but I was like, I met them. Um, then I was like, damn. And I don't know, it was kind of sad because actually, like they were super cool. Like I really like my neighbors. Um,
Yeah, you had met them. Is that correct?
yeah.
You'd met Kaylee and who else had you met?
I think it was Santa and her boyfriend.
Okay. Okay.
And I think there was like some other people there, but I'm really bad with names.
Okay, is anybody else getting a weird vibe here? He thinks it was? So he's not even sure if he met all of them or knows them? Is this making sense to anybody?
So like I think those like I had to like look at online like the faces to try to like remember them because it was just like it was super brief. But yeah, they were super nice. They're super friendly. Like I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah. You
they're
remember.
like the best neighbors you could want.
I have a question here that you mentioned hearing a lot of sounds typically from the neighbors. Is this because it's highly populated, poorly insulated? Tell us a little bit about the neighborhood because a lot of us,
I
all
mean,
we see is only on the news. We're trying to grasp what this
I guess
neighborhood
you
is
could
like.
I guess you would say it's kind of like an amphitheater here. It's like they live kind of like in down like the hill, and then it's like a big open space. Everything's made of wood for the most part, and like they would have little like gatherings outside on their like in the back door, and so I mean, and then they're like drinking a little bit, and it's Greek row, so it's like yeah, you can usually hear like parties and like just like uh social drinking chatter, like around the block or whatever, like usually on weekends. It's kind of like similar vibe of like what think of like a small downtown city. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Frat houses, two fraternity homes probably have a decent amount of parties going on if it's a college
Yeah.
town. Is
And
that?
us the block parties are kind of popular too. Like they'll kind of like like get in big crowds and then kind of like wander around. You know what I mean? Just like go throughout campus and stuff. Not so much lately, but like you go from like sometimes they only stay at a house for like an hour or two, and then they like kind of like wander around and stuff.
That that
I
makes
guess in
sense.
the winter a little bit less, but yeah.
Okay. And are
They
you
were.
go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, what
sorry,
time
to
was the
find the
knock?
question. They
Yeah,
were
what
at like I want to say 1 ish p.m. 1:30
okay. So
from
shortly after
the.
the police were called then, in other words.
Yeah, they came almost instantly. It was a
Okay.
big deal.
We have another question here. Are you a student? How long have you lived there?
I'm not a student. I've been cooking for like 6 years now, 5 years.
Okay.
Um, I've lived here off and on for 20. What was the last question? I missed it.
Um, let's see. It was are you familiar with the activities at the house? I assume they mean the crime scene. Like did you were at their house when you met them, right? I'm referring
No,
to a Reddit
yeah, I read
thing
them.
that
They
you
were
wrote.
actually outside. I never went inside.
Okay.
Whoa, that was interesting. So, what does everybody make of that? Would someone who's just talking casually say, "Oh, I didn't actually go inside," or would they emphatically state, "I never went inside"? because he used the word never as if to disassociate himself from anything, which is also kind of weird because if he's guilty, wouldn't he claim he did go inside? I mean, I don't know. This just seems. On the other hand, if he's innocent but he's worried about being seen as guilty, perhaps he would be very defensive and say, I never went inside. But it seems, again, and obviously this is person dependent on how people talk. Everybody talks a little differently. But casually, maybe somebody said, well, I didn't actually go inside. Never is a very interesting word there.
But no, I didn't like. I was in my apartment all night, so.
Okay, the night of the murders or the crime, you were in your apartment all night.
I never really hung out with them. So like, to me, they were just like some normal sorority girls that drank every once in a while on the weekends. So.
Okay, and and when I was asking you about meeting them, I want everybody else to know, and I know, but you also decided to share an AMA on Reddit recently, which is when I reached out to you, and you did kind of mention meeting them, or at least Kaylee, and maybe you think you might have met Xana and her boyfriend. That would be Ethan. Bringing them a bottle of wine, perhaps. Was that what happened? Or share us. Can you take us to?
Yeah, because I think the person I think I remember most is Kaylee, and like when I introduced myself, I think she was like the first one I shook hands with. I just had like this. It was a pretty nice bottle of wine. I don't remember what kind it was, but it was pretty expensive. And I was cooking with it, and I wasn't gonna finish it, and I was like taking my trash out. So I don't remember while I was outside, and they were just like like chit chatting, drinking a little bit, playing some cool music, and so I went down, and they were like drinking some beer, and I was just like. Asked her if she wanted this bottle of wine. I wasn't gonna finish this, and they were like, "Yeah, fuck yeah." And then I was like, "Yeah." And then I just introduced them, like the neighbor, like lived upstairs, and that was pretty much it. They were super nice and smiley, and that's pretty much all I remember. I never met him after that. I was like, I always thought about crashing their party sometimes, but I never actually did it. I usually got my own thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah, you referred to them in the Reddit AMA as beautiful, joyful. I can't remember the other two adjectives, but
yeah, they seem very cool. And some of my coworkers actually went to high school with them in Coeur d'Alene, so it's a trip for us. So, and they said they're super cool too. So it's crazy that it's like as when you think about these people getting stabbed, it's kind of like horrifying because it makes you think that it can happen to anyone, like not just like people who are doing some shit, you know what I mean, like just like normal people every day. And I think that's the really like spooky, scary part right now to some people.
Yeah. What's your thought about the luxury SUV now? Looking back, you probably didn't think too much of it then. Any ideas?
No, not really. It's pretty decked out. I think how like rims, tinted windows. You just look at cool car, and that's why I noticed it. But I didn't I just assumed it was like one of the the people's parents. Like a lot of the students here have really rich parents, and they have nice cars. So that's just kind of what it seemed like to me. And I don't know. I saw I think it was a kind of like a deserty. It might have been. It was either like Arizona. It might even been Colorado, but I think or like Montana. And I saw one of those cars parked up on the hill of our lot a lot. I'm wondering if it was a white Elantra. I'm thinking back and I can't remember. I don't want to say it was or not, but that was the only other car I noticed that didn't seem like someone that lives there. I don't know. I'm not that observant, but I'd say more observant than most people, I guess.
Okay, going back a little bit, though, when he first referenced it being a trip that these girls were the ones killed, is that just the way he talks? Because it almost looks like he started smiling. It's a trip. Some of my coworkers went to high school with them. It's almost like he found that amusing, and then he immediately jumps into, oh, the scary, spooky part is it could happen to anybody. Again, is this guy just kind of weird and awkward, and that's why it's coming off like this, or is there something more? I mean, it's kind of impossible to tell, really, because even it seems like it's going to be hard to get a baseline on him because he is kind of weird and awkward and says every 2 seconds. So it's very, very difficult to decipher this. And also, I don't know what this statement means. I'm more observant. I'm not that observant, but I'm more observant than most people. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Liz is asking, did you know that your coworkers knew them before or after the
No,
murder?
no. One of the like the next day I went to work, I had a one of the dudes talk down and talk to me, and just like asked me how I was doing and talk, and was telling me how like knew some of the people or something, and like it's like, well, that's crazy. But I mean, that's like Coeur d'Alene's pretty local, you know what I mean? So like,
Right.
it's not that far off.
Right, and that's where you work then is Coeur d'Alene. Is that
No,
did
I
you say?
work in Moscow. No, I work in
Oh,
Pullman.
you
Sorry.
went to high school with them in Coeur d'Alene and you work in Moscow. That makes
No,
more
I didn't
sense.
go to high school with them. One of my coworkers did. I
Okay.
went to I went to school in Pullman.
Okay. All right. Sleuth Mom, it's good to see you. I want to let people know that for those missing, Sleuth Mom does a wonderful job covering important cases. Thanks for being here with us, Sleuth Mom. There's some audio. I wanted to ask you this because you've come forward and said you may or may not have heard a scream. You're thinking about it now, wondering if it was a party sound you heard, or if it was an actual, scream you heard. There has been so much speculation going on, online and social media. I know you know that. You've been a part of that. We'll talk about that later, but there's been some audio making rounds of a scream, and I was just wondering if you could confirm that that was nothing you provided to any media anywhere, because a lot of people are trying to
No,
make connections there.
I didn't hear about it till basically people were telling me and things like this, and I was like, oh, lol. Yeah, no, complete hoax. Yeah,
Okay.
I have nothing to do with it. How
Yeah.
many views has it got?
It's on multiple channels, so I couldn't even tell you how many views the
Oh
scream has
wow.
received because there's so many different outlets, not official outlets, but
Yeah, I
YouTubers.
didn't record anything. I don't see how I would record something after I hear something unless I was already recording, which I wasn't. So,
Yeah. You've mentioned that you're an artist and that you're a chef. Do you ever stay up late doing your craft, working on things? Do you ever hear what's going on around the neighborhood ever? If you're up
yeah,
late?
I mean, I don't know. No, I guess not. I mean, I usually listen to something, so I mean, I'm usually like zoned in on whatever I'm doing. But I guess it's kind of like on like the parties night. Like the like I don't know. The parties are kind of just like noise to me. So like I hear that, and like every once in a while, like I'll hear like somebody return home really late in the night. But I mean, it's like semi-normal, like 3, 4 a.m. Like that's not that late. People go over to people's houses and they hang out for a long time, and then they come home on the weekends. Like that's just like college life, I feel like. And like sometimes I'll just like listen to some music in my bedroom to like kind of like tune out like anybody who's like super super late or loud. Um, and then sometimes like you'll hear just like people walking down, like I don't know, sometimes yelling, but not like it doesn't happen like I don't know. It's not super super loud, but it's like it's campus, it's noisy. But I mean, it's like you can hear what's going on. I guess sort of like was close vicinity, but yeah, it's usually just noise. Like there's nothing like you want to listen to. I guess it's kind of weird. I guess like you can kind of like our walls are really thin, so like certain places you can hear like certain areas outside or inside, whatever. But I don't know. The place I think you can hear in that neighbor's house, I guess, is like in the house is like the yard. I feel like the yard is the place where you can hear the most things. Like so, if you were going to hear something that happened at a house, it'd probably be the yard. Like I feel like the sounds inside, I'm guessing, wouldn't carry as much. Just because like again, I think that yard is sort of like almost an amphitheater set up a little bit. It's like it's got the hill and it's like down a little bit, and then above it is like the parking lot and another hill. So it's like I don't know, it's kind of like a meteor like hole in a sense. And so like I think probably like in the middle the sound probably resonates around.
That makes sense. And you can call me Patches is also saying college towns are just noise sometimes. It's hard to tell what's what. A request for clarification. Back to the SUV one more time that you saw. Can you
I don't
clarify?
think
There's some
so.
confusion in chat. Okay, so you're saying you don't
I don't
think
know
the
though.
SUV you
I
saw
don't.
was
She
Haley's
drove a
car.
Ford. I don't know. Ford's not that luxury to me. I don't think I would have noticed that. I mean, it's a nice car, but I don't think it wouldn't stand out to me. I don't know. It just stood out to me because like I drive kind of a sketchy car, and it's kind of decked out, and it's like I don't know. I noticed like I've always been into like cars with like rims and tinted windows and stuff like that, and this was like one of those cars I'd be like, man, probably if I was younger and rich, I probably would have bought it. So I think that's why it stood out to me. But like, yeah, it
Okay.
just it kind of seemed like either a baller or like somebody's rich parents. That's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the speculation? Do you talk to neighbors? What are people saying about this? It's
No,
been 4
I'm
weeks
a
and
hermit.
no
I'm super
police.
hermit. I don't really
Okay.
talk to anyone. I talk to a few of my really old friends. I hang out with my coworkers sometimes. Um, and most of the time I'm super busy in my crafts. Like I don't know. And I have like I don't know. There's like a girl I hang out with, and that's about it.
Okay. Okay. Um, does it make you nervous at all that this is unsolved? Do you feel
A
nervous?
little bit, yeah.
A little bit?
Just I mean, it's pretty brutal and like I don't know, thought out killing, I guess. Like it's like kind of scary, and it also kind of scary that it just happened to some ordinary people. So I think everyone's a little bit spooked now. You know what I mean? Like, I guess in the city, the shit's like semi-normal or whatever, but like not here. Like I don't know. So I don't know. It's kind of scary that this would happen ever. Like especially in this town. So.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like you think about it, it's like what kind of protection can you get at these cases? Like you can lock your windows, you can like, put strips and stuff, you can get a gun, but like this dude like went in the house and killed them before they could really react. They grab a gun or whatever and left and not anybody knowing, like that's scary, you know what I mean? So like thinking about people doing that out, especially like on your block is pretty spooky.
So curious. So well thought out. These are his thoughts. This crime was well thought out and getting in and out of the house without anyone knowing. So what are his thoughts on the roommates? Like what does he believe they didn't know? Because with the new information, supposedly there's a sighting of this guy with bushy eyebrows. So has he made any statements recently on what he thinks happened with the roommates?
Yeah. That absolutely it is. It's and thank you. Hello from England. We are so sorry to hear such a horrific crime, they said. Thank you so much. Um, have you talked to law enforcement since that first day they came over and asked you if you'd heard anything or where you
Uh,
were
yeah, I did once.
once? Did they
Yeah.
come over to the neighborhood again to talk to everyone, or did you go talk to them about
No,
what
I
you
wouldn't.
heard?
I just talked to them later.
Okay. Um, anything else you want to tell us about that, or is that a
No,
off
not
the
really.
record thing? Okay.
That's off the record, chef.
Res-
Off the record stuff. That's curious because if he hadn't done the AMA where he admitted his past legal issues and incarcerations, one would think he just didn't feel comfortable talking about his past criminal history. But he's already made that all public in the AMA. So now it seems like maybe that it's all off the record stuff. So does that not refer to any of his admitted drug use, admitted previous legal issues? So is it something else, or is it something specifically tying to the crime which he was instructed not to talk about? Or is it a third option, something we have no clue about? But yeah, I mean, that's interesting, to say the least.
Thank you. And by the way, this is a channel where I will ask a lot of questions, but I also respect my guests. For those wondering if something's off the record or you don't ever want to answer, that's all you need to say and we move on. So thank you. You posted on your Facebook. I'm going here, by the way, to my phone to look at questions that I have written for you. And I'm also getting questions over in chat. While I look, you have mentioned on your own social media pages and even posted some of the proof that you've been getting harassed yourself and feeling the wrath of true crime sleuth and speculation. Can you tell us a little bit about that or what you've been going through?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of I mean, it's almost hilarious to me that people think I did it, and they're like telling me like, "Yo, you know, you did it," and it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like the equivalent to like flat Earth theory to me when I like read some of these like Reddit conspiracies and shit. Um, I don't know. I've been mostly ignoring it, but try sometimes read it and it gets to me, but I don't know. It's the other time it's just like it's almost entertaining to me, but it's a little bit scary too. I'm like, what are these people trying to get me? But it's whatever.
Yeah. Cheshire Cat is saying, are there cameras in the area? Do you think anyone might have been able to catch anything that happened?
I
What are your
doubt
thoughts?
very many. No, there's not a lot of thefts or break-ins or murders or really anything that happens here. A lot of people leave their doors unlocked, windows unlocked. It's generally pretty safe. Our our apartment complex didn't even really have lights in like the hallway or cameras until like right after. Then they put up like some motion sensors and stuff. But like there's like for the most part this neighborhood's like pretty dark, and we kind of I don't know, I kind of liked it. You know what I mean? It's like at night, like there's no lights, and you kind of go to sleep really easily. Um, but yeah, I don't think very many people have cameras because they don't really feel unsafe in this neighborhood or whatever. Most people know people too, so it's like whatever. Yeah, it's not a really sketchy neighborhood, like just a bunch of college kids. Yeah,
Right.
apparently some one of them had like doorstep neighbors, and I know like, just in the 21st century, a lot of people have like security cameras, so there's like probably some stuff around, but it's like me, like I bought a cam for my car just, in case whatever, but it's like it's been like a year and I still haven't put it in my car, so like,
Oh wow.
like
Yeah.
that's how like safe it's like I just like never really felt the need to like actually put it up. But now I'm like, I should definitely put that shit up. I wish I had it up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Would people sleep with their doors open in this town? Is that kind of the protocol
I don't
or
know about that far, but I'm not gonna say it's never happened. I accidentally walked into somebody's house because the door was open, and I was trying to go to a friend's house when I was like 17, and I like opened it up, and there's just like some dudes on the couch. I was like, oops. Uh, Shut the
yeah.
door back to halfway. Like, oops. Went to the next house. It's like, oh, cool. This is the right one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Afflicted Angel, a lot of people are just asking for confirmation, which I actually really value. As a journalist, I was a television reporter for 10 years. It's really good to hear and see things and then to ask for more confirmation always. So they're asking, is this actually you commenting
Yes.
on Reddit doing the AMA? They want to know
Yes.
that. Yes, this is him. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Thank you, Sleuth Mom, for reminding people that this is very true. I'm trying to read everything in chat, and some moderators are helping a bit, but I am missing some things. You can send and post something in a super chat or leave something in comment, but I don't know if we'll have the same guest again. So I'll do my best though to get to your questions. And thank you again for being here. A lot of thank yous are coming through for you being here and coming forward. So, what, have you heard anything about the alcohol offense at 3 a.m.? Do you know about that? It was behind the Sigma Chi house, and we have body cam footage from that. Do you know anything about that or heard of
I
that?
haven't. It's the first I've heard of it. I don't
Okay.
really pay attention to the media or news really at all. I'm a stick juggler. I kind of in my own world most of the time. But yeah, no. I don't. I'm super hermit. I kind of like. I live like one of the most introverted lives you can imagine. Um, but no, I'm curious though. Tell me about it.
Well, it was, and I already have one correction. Thank you to everyone in chat helping me with these little details. It was on the band field. It was about 3 a.m. There's body cam footage now that has come out from it. It was the morning of the murders. So people are, zeroing in on different things they're seeing in the body cam footage that was released, taken on the band field at 3 a.m. And I know that you sometimes hear things, not always. You say you were asleep all night. What time did you go to bed that night, by the way?
Um, I don't know. I'm probably around like 2:30 to 4 a.m.
Okay.
I don't really look at the time after I get at home, so it's all just like an estimate. But that's probably the range based off of the activities that I was doing.
Yeah. One more confirmation having to do with SUVs, but now this is about Kaylee's or some. Can you confirm if there was a black Explorer that was parked there daily? It was parked behind a red Jeep inside the crime scene tape. Everybody was sort
I
of.
don't think it was that one. No, I'm gonna review the footage again, but I don't think it was that one.
Now, just going back a little bit, does everybody buy that he didn't know about the body cam footage and that he doesn't actually keep up with the details of one of the most high-profile homicide cases, not just in Idaho, but in the entire United States? I mean, this is one of the most high-profile cases ever, and he's the neighbor. Does he really think people are going to I mean, I guess he doesn't care if people believe him or not, but is that plausible? That he's not keeping up with developments in the case? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Did you see a black Explorer that was parked there daily with crime scene tape around? Or did you notice the vehicles that
Yeah,
were
I
inside the crime scene
think
tape?
so. I think I noticed a lot of like dark SUVs, and I just kind of assumed they were like FBI or police or something. But this was like this. I'm pretty sure this other car was different. And it had out of state plates. That's one of the things I noticed about it. I think this one didn't have out of state. The Ford Explorer, whatever. I don't think that had out of state plates. I could be wrong, but this one definitely had. It was like I almost want to say it was Utah, honestly, but it was like barrenish. It was night. It was hard to see, but it was like barren plates, like deserty. It's like Arizona or Utah, Colorado, Montana. It's like mountainy, maybe. I think it might have been mountainy, but yeah. So I only saw two cars that had out of state plates. So
Okay. Julie is asking, genuinely curious. She's not being confrontational, and I can
oh
confirm
no, you're
that
good.
because Julie is a very curious person. She's
Vaulted
curious.
ceilings.
Why would
Vaulted
an introvert move
ceilings.
to a party town? Go ahead. Sorry.
This is the only place I could afford with vaulted ceilings. So I could juggle at home. I need like at least like 10, 11, 12, 13 foot clearance. So um it's hard to find. The apartments like that are hard to find anywhere. So and like the ones with vaulted ceilings are usually like luxury places. So you have to pay like a premium for them.
Okay.
So this was cool. I was living in Pullman, so I was like paying a lot, and I had because of my felonies, I couldn't really move anywhere for 7 years. So after 7 years, I instantly moved into the first place available with vaulted ceilings. And this is where I ended up.
Gotcha. I will
And
admit I've been admiring the ceilings in the background. They're beautiful. Those wood
yeah,
ceilings.
pretty dope place.
Yeah. Miss Wales asked, did the dog bark lots or did you know? And I think they're referring to
I did
Murphy.
not know the dog.
Okay.
No, I never met the dog. I didn't know there was a dog until pretty recently, actually. Someone asked me why the dog was spared, and that's the first time I heard about the dog.
Okay. Okay. Um, and did you hear any dogs barking ever? Were dogs typically barking in the
No,
neighborhood or nothing?
no, not really. Not usually. It's usually decently quiet at night. I feel like sometimes I don't know. I usually don't hear a lot of animals, honestly. I feel like if my cat will maybe make a dog bark every once in a while, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, our deal here is this is like, consider this like Reddit AMA. You can answer any questions here you want, and you don't have to answer any questions you want. But Jamie is asking, he says, where did it go? Someone is asking, this was not it, but somebody was asking if you wanted to go further. They mentioned you had a felony, and you talked a little bit about this on Reddit AMA. Do you want to go into that now, or?
I've got three. Well, I don't have three anymore. They're expired, so they're off my record now. As of like 3 years ago. So
Oh,
it's been
okay.
like 10 years. But yeah, I had three. Had a possession of marijuana. Had a possession of MDMA with intent to deliver, and I had a delivery of MDMA.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, and let's see. We lost you for a bit. Are you back? You're
Yeah.
back. Can we hear you? Okay, we can hear you. All right. Thank you, Stephanie B, for reminding everyone that's here to please, if you like these types of interviews, hit like and subscribe. It helps us know what we should continue doing as a channel. And Liz is asking, this is a great question, and I want to take this question a little bit further. She is asking, have there been any normal parties at the Sigma Chi house since the incident,
Nope.
or any parties, or has it been really quiet?
No, I
since?
haven't. I haven't really noticed anything since then. But I honestly haven't been really I haven't been home as much lately on the weekends, but yeah, it's been pretty quiet, honestly. No, because there's definitely been no parties at that house recently, and I think there was like maybe one, but I can't really remember anything outside of that. It's been pretty tame recently.
Okay. Yeah, has it been quieter around town since this event? Not
Yeah, I
event.
mean,
That
it's
was
also
a
well, also like you have to think about it too. Like the cops are everywhere,
horrible
right?
crime.
Like nobody wants to party. Like the cops are like there's like probably like 20 cops parked in like the parking lot next to our neighborhood. Like, and there's like probably like another five like in the house like all day. There's always one that's there all night. So it's like I don't think anyone's trying to party with, you know what I mean? Like for whatever reason. So it's kind of funny. I thought they were like, just trying to like speed trap and pull people over for like the first few weeks, but then I realized that they're just nonstop working on this case. So they're always here. But I'm sure people are trying to throw parties with that happening. You know what I mean?
Right. There was a great question from Julie Holden. I don't see it now, but essentially, has the restaurant you work in, without telling us what that restaurant is, has it been quieter? That
No,
might be good.
I mean, people can't stop telling me about the conspiracy theories, and it's actually been providing a little bit of humor in these times.
And it is kind of hard to decipher this because obviously humor is subjective. And conspiracy theories about him being the murderer, I mean, if he finds them that ludicrous, he might think they're funny in a ludicrous type fashion. But in general, would someone say theories are humorous about a quadruple homicide? I don't know. And again, if you want to just write that off as this guy being kind of weird, which he seems to be, I guess you could.
Because they're pretty hilarious individuals. So like I don't know, they just keep like making fun of these new conspiracies, and so it's been an interesting time for sure. The first week it was really quiet. I didn't say like probably like really anything for the first few days. Like I was at work after it happened, but after a few weeks, it's starting to get better. I don't know. I have the other day I was thinking about it and I was pretty quiet, but we've been trying to like, I don't know, it's best to just try not to think about it, right now, but it's hard also because like we're surrounded by it everywhere. But
right. Yeah, speaking of speculations, you live in the neighborhood, which means there was somebody that did this. Do you speculate without naming names? We don't want to name any names or anything or identify people on our channel, but do you ever speculate about who could have possibly done this?
I mean for sure, but no one fits the bill. Honestly, when I think about all my neighbors, I'm just like, no way. Like everyone, I think, even like who might have killed them at the slightest inconvenience, is just completely irrational and ridiculous. Like when I think about any like individual personally, like any personal like neighbor, like anyone in this area, I'm just like, there's no way. Like they're all like pretty normal people. They all got their own shit going on. To think of them doing this is just absurd. But
so with that being said, what none of your neighbors fit the bill. What type of person do you think this might have been? What it was?
I'm looking into I don't know if it's true, but I was looking into a report that said it was like almost a blunt, heavy object, and a really strong person did it. I'm kind of imagining like maybe like a hunter dude, like some like super mentally ill dude who's maybe experienced with hunting, who has like some type of like farm blunt stabbing object, and just like really waited patiently until everything was really quiet. Like maybe he knew about this weekend was being quiet and then went in there and did it. But I don't know. It's like, it's so bizarre. Like nothing, thinking about, it's hard to think about it because I think the first thing I try to think about is a motive. And that's like, it just draws me into a bunch of blanks.
So there you have it, a super mentally ill dude. Now, here's the real question. Has anybody ever described a potential suspect like that? I mean, is this the new type of criminal profile? Super mentally ill dude. They're also discussing how law enforcement allegedly cleared all these individuals before the DNA tests were tested against CODIS. So that's kind of weird. Bright Produce posted, he admittedly said on one of TNT's earlier videos with him that he was in jail for robbery. Him and I think 2 other people were going to rob someone of drugs. Openly says how he used to sell and talked of cargo ships and borders. I guess what bothers me is inserting yourself into investigation when you don't have to. I'm glad he came forward, but something seems a little off in my opinion. Some of these kids seem to have a fascination with knives or tools and weapons associated with the knife family. Inan is a cook, chef, that's why he has knives, just saying. Huh. I mean, it's actually kind of hard to tell from the video, even though the video is fairly good quality. Is that him in the video, or is it not? The guy with the redhead there. Some people believe that all these individuals surrounding the girls, or not all of them, some of them are in some kind of a setup. They're being set up. And that's really creepy on a lot of levels of it. Med Jame posted, he was 1,000,000% at the grub truck. He lied. This is extremely troublesome. While I'm not saying Koberger is innocent, what if he, in fact, was not acting alone, and maybe he was friends with said person? We don't know. Something is wrong with the story. Inan himself stated he was at the grub truck a few months ago. Now he denies it. Any YouTuber who says it's not him is under a delusion. That is him with his friend, the redheaded woman who is openly transgender, which means her DNA is male. Yes, it is true. I am not asking. I am stating a fact. And I don't know where they got that information from. Med Jame also posted, the shoes at the grub truck are Vans, and subsequently he hasn't worn those Vans on any social media. Okay, so it's either him or a guy who looks exactly like him. Mystery School Dropout also posted, Inan Harsh was the neighbor that said he saw a black SUV that he did not recognize as being there frequently or normally. He may even be a witness for all we know. Supposedly this redheaded woman individual is also in the body cam footage with him. I don't know which body cam is being referenced here because his 2018 arrest looks like he's alone in that vehicle.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, Inan, right?
Yeah, what?
Yep. Long time no see. How are you doing?
Oh my god. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you for asking. Well, you know me. I'm Officer Harkins. Do you have the driver's license, proof of insurance, and vehicle registration?
Yeah.
Excellent. And do you know why I stopped you?
No.
So I saw your hand near your face. I wasn't sure if that was cell phone or if you were just scratching. Were you on the cell phone?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. That's just fine. I'll just grab your information from you. The driver's license, a proof of insurance, and the vehicle registration if you got it. Funny. I was wondering if I'd ever see you while I was working. Hopefully not.
Yeah, right?
But just a traffic stop is about as low-key as it can get. That looks like that'll be the registration. And you have the proof of insurance as well. Lovely. Whoop, sorry. Tell you what, you keep looking for that and I'll get my side of things done and rolling and then I'll be right back with you, okay?
Thanks.
Okay, so unfortunately, well, hey, there you go. Hold on. So unfortunately, I'm showing that your license is suspended. It seems like you failed to pay a ticket of some kind at some point. So if you wouldn't mind turning the ignition off from the car and then stepping outside with me, that'd be perfect. And we'll just get you sorted from here, okay?
Okay.
And come on now. Perfect. If you want to just step behind your car, do you have the phone on you? You can start organizing a ride from here.
Oh, you're taking my car?
I'm not going to take your car, but I can't let you drive it because I will be letting you continue to drive suspended.
Yeah, hold on.
Yep. So I do have to advise you that you are under arrest for driving while license is suspended. Let me read you your Miranda rights. If I can find them, I've got a lovely card here.
Hey, partner, why don't you sit over here on the guardrail for us? It'll probably
That'd
better
be
place for you
a little
to sit
safer.
there.
Okay, so I'm going to read you your rights. Is that cool? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. You have the right at this time to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before questioning if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand those rights as I've read them to you?
Yeah, so are you
Okay.
going to take me to jail or?
I'm not going to take you to jail if you can organize a ride and everything. So what I'm going to do is you have been advised that you're under arrest, so you do have to stay on scene. I'm going to have my partner here stay with you while I work on doing a criminal citation, and if you can get someone to get the car on out of here, that's fine with me, and then we'll just let you go get a ride out from here, okay?
Cool, thanks.
Inan,
What's up?
what are you doing?
Going home for a little bit.
Okay, cool. So how'd your license go? Are we going to have an issue today? Okay, cool. So I stopped you because your tabs are expired, like just at the very beginning of this month on the 1st. But I figured I'd let you know anyway. But if I could grab your driver's license and then the vehicle registration and your proof of insurance. And I think you had all of those sorted out last time I saw you. Besides the license. Alrighty. So, anything fun this weekend?
We're gonna go backpacking.
Nice. Very cool. Where are you headed backpacking?
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. That's the one.
Oh, I'm gonna find my
Insurance is on your phone, or do you have a card?
Oh, there's insurance on the phone.
All right. Do you mind if I look at that one and I can just double check and see? This one is expired by like literally exactly 2 months, but do you have it access to your insurance on your phone at all? How about I give you a chance to check that stuff out and I'll get my side of things going, okay?
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Did you have any luck with the insurance card?
Not yet. I was gonna check my email real quick.
Yeah, here's what I'll do for you. So, just like I said, your tab's expired on the 1st of the month, so I'll just remind you about that. Just get down to the Department of Licensing, and it's like, I think, anywhere from $25 to $30 to get them updated. And then if you want to email me the proof of insurance when you get a hold of it, that'd be super. Cool. And I can do that for you, okay? And my email is on there. And I'll just write you a little note that says, please send insurance. There you go. Well, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks.
And here is everything back to you. Just make sure you get that insurance to me and get your tabs updated, okay?
Cool, thanks, Riley.
Yeah, be safe tonight, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so how far into Mindshock land are we going? So what did everybody notice from those videos? So JLR Investigates YouTube channel has released these 2 body cam footages. I'm guessing it was a Freedom of Information Act request to get them, so they are all public, of course. And these are coming from JLR here. So what does everybody make of this? The first thing that jumps out for the numerology people So the first incident is from April 13th. The second incident, August 13th. And of course, the University of Idaho homicides occurred on November 13th. So it seems like everything is going on the 13th. This is kind of weird. So only the April 13th was Friday the 13th, 2018. But August 13th was a Monday, and November 13th, 2022 was a Sunday. So only one of them was Friday the 13th. If they were all Friday the 13th, I mean, that would be really bizarre. But either way, I mean, it's all the 13th. That's kind of weird. And of course, obviously, he knows the officer. Their friendly nature is obviously evident in these encounters. I mean, he's arrested without actually being arrested in the first one. But anyway, who is in his vehicle in the second one? Is that really the same individual that's caught on video at the grub truck? It's kind of hard to tell. Is that the same individual caught on video at the grub truck from an individual who's supposedly not him or looks exactly like him? So if this woman is not the same woman, what does that mean? She just likes people who look like Inan Harsh, so she's hanging out with him here, going hiking in his car. He also possibly referred to her in the interview as the girl that he hangs out with, his main girl or whatever. Is it the same person? I have no idea. I don't claim anything is true or untrue here. The Mindshock listeners can decide. So here's possibly the most mind-shocking theory yet. There is, of course, another video. I don't even know if we went over this video.
What did you say to Adam? I told Adam. What did you say to Adam? I told Adam.
The supposedly I told him everything video. I told Adam everything. Sleuthing Some posted this a month ago on the Brian Koberger Moscow subreddit. Allegedly, Maddie told Adam that her, Kaylee, Zaina, and Ethan found out that he, Adam, and the two Davids were responsible for Hudson's death. Adam then told the two Davids and told them. The official story was that Hudson drowned. He did drown. He was waterboarded in hazing. Showalter's reply, "They're gonna get you, Maddie," was right. Guess who Ethan and Zaina had a fight with at the frat party? The Davids. Dylan gave the green light that Zaina, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee were in their rooms. Allegedly. Wow, I mean, that is an interesting theory that supposedly matches some of the variables, but there are so many mysterious deaths in this area. I mean, does it also seem like they're way too calm for all of this? If that's allegedly what they're talking about, or are they talking about some just low-level drug, issues, like really low level, where they're not actually... I mean... Why? Yeah, I don't know. Why would they be that calmly discussing this?
What did you say to Adam? I told Adam. What did you say to Adam? I told Adam.
So what does everybody make of this? Lot of curiosities here. Let's close this out with some comments on the conspiracy subreddit regarding my podcast episode 10 on this case. TikTok nurse posted, "I've mentioned elsewhere some things that never sat well and was of course met with invalidation and gaslight in response. as is the usual per the Dunning-Kruger crowd circling true crime communities online and getting triggered at anybody who wants to actually think critically instead of just taking on blind faith whatever's peddled on the idiot box as the official narrative. The police in the unmarked squad car, parked under the tree and streetlight and standing around in direct view of the 1122 house up the hill. They are stopping random people in the grass by the street there, which had not happened ever before. Even one of the students commented on the body cam something to the effect of, "Oh, I didn't know what was going on or who you guys, the cops, were." So the kid's comment is telling you this little police stop thing they were doing exactly as the murders were taking place was not a normal thing for that spot. The kid lives there and had never seen police just sitting there at 3 a.m. harassing what amounted to hardly anybody in the first place. The police say, "Oh, we are looking for people walking with liquor, etc." Oh yeah, right there in view of 1122 in the dark with literally 2 cars passing by in the 15-minute body cam footage. Makes sense. That's 2 vehicles in 15 minutes and 2 groups of 4 to 5 walking across the street to and from the frat houses. My super quiet bedroom community suburban street gets more traffic than that at 3 a.m. And you can hear a pin drop all night. If the cops truly were after college drinking, they would have been stationed in a million other better locations to do that other than where they were. So their excuse for being there doesn't even make sense at all. What makes more sense is that they were on the lookout for whatever might impede the operation. If you are police on patrol at night, you use a marked squad car to make your presence known as a scare tactic for future drinkers and, of course, for safety reasons. You guys gonna harass a couple females in the dark with an unmarked rental car or your squad car decked out in all black with military vests? Makes no sense. I cannot speculate what the story is here or how deep something like that goes if what I'm describing has merit. I mean, look at the Boston Marathon. There were spooks all over the place at the time of the event, and nobody in the mainstream ever called that out. High-res pics showing these bozos in their military issue boots and massive backpacks. The story of the girls delaying the 911 call can play into a plot 100 different ways, too. It adds to the obfuscation of everything. It's possible that the drug connection played a primary role in the murders. Kaylee's "I told him everything" may have been a dam buster that precipitated the killings. Did the girls blow cover on a massive operation that involved some members of law enforcement? The bizarre changing of stories early on with the media and the police chief is also playing into the operation. The mom arrested on drug charges at the same time as the murders is also sus AF. I could write more, but stopping here. I'm betting it was a cover-up. Brian may be a dealer or middleman, Patsy, that was at the house, maybe even partying with the surviving girls, etc., then leaves and some black op dudes come in and stab the place up, but then not killing certain others, framing Brian. In my opinion, this was 100% not a crime of passion or random killing over being an incel. This was drug-related, and if that's the case, the Keystone cops dragging their feet on the investigation and also being in the direct vicinity of the crime in an unmarked vehicle and black clothing when it was occurring stinks like pure expletive. Cheers. Okay, that's a good point there. This is a theory we haven't exactly discussed. Is there some kind of undercover drug operation possibly involving corrupt police officers? Were one or more of them CIs, and is this all coincidental involving other suspicious deaths, frat or sorority activities? Again, keep in mind, the female victims here, they belonged or formerly belonged to the only 2 out of the 10 sororities be on probation, being investigated for unsafe practices, etc., etc. There were 10, but it just so happens that the 3 female victims were only the 2 out of the 10. So 100% of the female victims were part of 20% of sororities on probation and under investigation for unsafe practices. Make of that what you will. And then the fight at the frat party. I mean, yeah, this is all just a really, really tangled web. It's really, really bizarre. What was police doing there in an unmarked vehicle at the time of 4 murders going on? Frosty responded, just remember, most, if not all, cops are Freemasons. I remember in August 2017, I was with my friends at their house getting ready from a party, and suddenly we hear a bunch of cars coming from the back of the community. We look out, and each house on the block had a car sitting in front of it with 2 guys inside. A white Toyota truck came barreling down the road from the entrance with about 20 dudes in the back with white t-shirts and jeans. They go to the house diagonal to my friends and knock on the door. The guy answers and gets pulled from his house and got the living expletive beat out of him. Then they toss him in the back of the pickup and leave. This happened within a 15 to 20 minute span. It was pure chaos during that time, screaming, yelling, all that. When the truck left, all the cars followed in order one by one. Then it was quiet, an eerie silence that came over the neighborhood. We called 911 and they told us that we were the 8th anonymous phone call. Then our friends show up and we told them what happened and where were they? Well, they told us that at a 4-way stop that is literally a 1/10 of a mile from the community had a checkpoint. Now I have traveled that way 1,000 times all hours of the night since it was on my way home, and I have never seen a traffic stop at that 4-way stop. The weirdest thing is that no cops showed up that night to answer those 8 calls. Yet they were literally right outside the neighborhood during this event. So when you see weird things like random cops or things like that, like what was posted, it's most likely because it was planned and executed by the powers that be. What does everybody make of that story? That's a creepy story. TikTok nurse responded, what a crazy story. It's like they engaged in nothing but games and subversion for the highest bidder politician. I mean, plenty of Hollywood movies allude to this game playing with the lettered agencies. They play skits and then call them real in the news, which they also control and feed stories of fiction 24/7. Back to the cops at 11:22. If for the purposes of argument they were screening, stopping, delaying groups of people possibly walking toward that house as their skit was playing out, that's exactly how it would happen. A bunch of stupid chit-chat and then pulling of all of the dudes' info at the rental car, the squad, was a ridiculous dog and pony show. It's so twisted that it's like these cops were ordered to stop or delay anybody going toward that property at a given time frame. Then, when the green light is given, they get out of their rental car and screen people heading towards 11:22. And notice how the police ignore the group of 4 to 5 that were coming down from the 11:22 spot, as if they were the killers dressed as college kids, and the watchers let them pass while they gnarl up the potential witnesses or foilers. The pickup truck that passed on the body cam footage while they were all in the grass was probably a secondary lookout. Wow, I mean, this is all really, really creepy. If this theory is true, I mean, it certainly answers some questions, but it opens up a whole lot of other cans of worms, of course. Frosty responded, my question is, what do the victims' parents do for a living, especially that Kaylee chick? Parents who are involved in Freemasonry or the occult sacrifice their children or relatives for fame and wealth. It was interesting seeing Kaylee's dad be all over the news and basically the only parent talking. I wonder what he does for a living. Edit, I'm also going to guess that many of these mass shootings are also skits. Okay, well, I mean, that's going down some rabbit holes there. Now, aren't most of those occult sacrifices, aren't they supposed to be for young children? I mean, some even believe the JonBenet Ramsey case involves some kind of occult sacrifice, Illuminati sacrifice of sorts. If you haven't checked out the latest podcast episodes on that case, check that out. The most comprehensive podcast series on the JonBenet Ramsey case. TikTok nurse responded, yeah, I did a pretty exhaustive People Spokio search on all the players and their families' locations back when this happened, and almost nothing was jiving with possible military-centric addresses on a few of the dads. Even the triplets, Ethan, aren't listed together in People's Search, where, if I remember correctly, the female of the triplets didn't come up anywhere. I mean, really doesn't help the credibility of things when you see that. There are too many moving parts to that case. It's hard to nail down where it begins and ends, with, as said, the one mom incarcerated during or right after the event. The memorial at the school was also sus AF, a clown show. And while we're on that subject, was there an actual funeral for any of these victims, or did the story of them so brutally stabbed beyond recognition absolve them of having to do fake open caskets and maybe do nothing at all? I guess what I'm saying, is there any footage of a single funeral of these victims where you can say, yep, that's legit and it happened with a real body in the casket, ? Or nothing even close to that, because it's also tiring. Pics, even one of something legit, or it didn't expletive happen. Frosty posted, this was a ritual. I mean, the gematria on this story is nuts. Even down to the apartment number he lived in. Dude could have been framed. Dude could have done it on an order. Who knows? I'm assuming they're referring to Koberger here. TikTok nurse posted, there's a deep history of witchcraft running through that corridor in Idaho, Washington, too. And by the way, have you seen the video of Brian and his dad getting pulled over? They look nothing alike or of the same blood whatsoever. Was he adopted or some expletive? Because it just adds to the pile of BS that makes no sense and is begging you see the Harbinger warning and to accept it. A post-2012 Smith-Munt Act revision skit propaganda. Follow us along in this fake world as we lead you through and accept your fate as planned. And yeah, the gematria here is hardcore. The 1122 alone is worth 3 walls of text. And yeah, I mean, normally I would write this off. Normally. However, what kind of shocked me is the specific reference to Moscow, Idaho by satanic Illuminati conspiracists in the Jean-Benet Ramsey case years ago. I don't know, 5-10 years ago, this was mentioned. I never heard of Moscow, Idaho until the murders, and then I did the Jean-Benet episode sometime after the murders, and they specifically mentioned Moscow, Idaho, which I thought was really weird. So at least there's a history of allegations of satanic, occult, Illuminati conspiracies, specifically in the Moscow area. And believe it or not, we still have much to go over. I mean, this case is really very, very layered. Despite the Dunning-Kruger crowd, the coincidence theorists, the authority-worshipping cultists that just want to believe it was Koberger simply because he was arrested, and it was shown on the idiot box in the mainstream media, and you had to have acted alone, and just ignore these mountains of anomalies and coincidences. That doesn't mean we do that here on Mindshock, because logic and reason are what we go by here. So that's it for now. If you want to help support the Mindshock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also be a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.